When you have the chance and the honor to live in the United Arab Emirates, it is necessary to know the history of this nation. After visiting all the Emirates and their museums, I had the chance to make friends with real Emiratis, especially Awhad, who honored my whole family by explaining his traditions to us. After the troubled times we are living through, one can only be proud to be a resident of such a wonderful country that makes every resident an Emirati under the guidance of enlightened leaders. Lately, we have all developed tough skin and bitter flesh, but let us continue the story. Let Awhad transport us into history, carried on the wings of his falcons. Oil doesn't explain everything. It's the vision of the country held by the founding fathers who made this nation a home for all, respecting each individual. Saint-Exupéry, this formidable French author, had understood very early on all the beauty of the desert, and his poems and quotes always highlight this magic. This silent radiance truly applies to the Emirates, which have become a beacon of peace in these particular times. I myself have fallen in love with this place, which I can express in this sentence. Most people ignore that the history of the Emirates began 7,500 years before Jesus Christ. As it turns out, creativity and the spirit of conquest are not new to this country, which was already working with bronze before the rest of humanity. In 2600 before Christ, the inhabitants were already building permanent dwellings, modern buildings for the time. But going back more than 10,000 years in history seemed too long, so let's take a leap into the 18th and 19th centuries to begin this story. Two tribes strongly marked this country in its origins, the Qawasim and the Bani Yas. Let's try to understand this together. These tribes shared a common foundation of tradition through the Bedouin way of life in the desert, which was organized as follows. The Majlis was born, and so were the poems. One must imagine the life of these caravans under a scorching sun, with the guarantee of the survival of the families. Faced with urgent situations, it was necessary to be able to make the right decisions for the common good and the safety of all. No television or video games, but storytellers, poems, and accounts of the day with the quality of listening to one another. Let's begin our journey with the Qawasim in the north of the Emirates, who quickly became very experienced sailors and unparalleled traders. At that time, the Arabian Gulf was already the subject of heavy traffic, and these experienced sailors soon became known as pirates in the eyes of the British, even though, in their view, they were within their rights on their own land. Thus, the name Pirate Coast was born. This image is somewhat false, as Sheikh Shakbout bin Diab is mainly a figure of the Bani Yas, a young Sheikh barely 20 years old when he takes power and ensures all the security of his people for many years. A reign marked by courage and visionary decisions.
Abu Dhabi became specialized in pearl fishing, and the subsidies collected ensured a large part of the income for all the tribes. Their vacation spot remained the oasis of Liwa and then Al Ain, as the weather conditions were too difficult year-round in Abu Dhabi, where water shortages were pressing. In 1833, a tribe gained independence and left the Bani Yas to join Dubai, where they set up camp at Bur Dubai. This was the tribe of the Aal Bu Flasa, led by the Aal Maktoum family, the name of the current Sheikh of Dubai, who remained and still are part of the Bani Yas. This loss of manpower did not help the Bani Yas tribe, especially against incursions from the south, and they gradually lost their influence to other families attracted by Dubai.
In 1855, the young Sheikh Zayed bin Khalifa, just 20 years old, exiled in Dubai for 5 years, seized power and killed in 1867 in a duel the ruler of Sharjah, Sheikh Khalid bin Sultan. The Bani Yas thus regained men by adding another tribe and the Sharjah region. This is the golden age of the Pearl of the Emirates, with seasoned fishermen and a worldwide reputation favored by the trade of Indian, British trading posts, which are extremely buyers of pearls. Proof of its very ancient use by humans. Pearls have been found in a tomb dating back to 5500 before Christ in the United Arab Emirates. But let's get back to our fishermen. They can make up to 200 dives per day at depths ranging from 6 minars to 20 minars. They crowd onto DHOs and have only the equivalent of a glass of water to drink during the day and a few dates as their only meal. The one who brought back the most oysters has the privilege of having lunch with the captain, sheltered from the sun on the aft deck. In the evening, it's time to open the oysters and recover the pearls, on average 1 in 100. For Europe and also for Turkey, the pearl is a symbol of power for kings and purity for queens. The latter listen to the words of the Curé d'Ars. A pure soul is like a beautiful pearl. As long as it is hidden in a shell at the bottom of the sea, no one thinks of admiring it. But if you show it to the sun, this pearl shines and attracts glances. The pearl is an ostentatious sign of wealth and power that must be displayed in the courts. For your information, in Araz Al Khaimah today, you can visit a pearl farm, Suwaidi Pearls Farm, discover the history of these divers, and visit an ancient DHO. During the reign of Sheikh Zayed bin Khalifa, the Bani Yas tribe maintains itself in a difficult period, but without major conflict.
In 1855, the young Sheikh Zayed bin Khalifa, just 20 years old, exiled in Dubai for 5 years, seized power and killed in 1867 in a duel the ruler of Sharjah, Sheikh Khalid bin Sultan. The Bani Yas thus regained men by adding another tribe and the Sharjah region. The Bani Yas regained their former influence in both the number of warriors and territory. CZBK becomes a fighting legend, and a year later, in 1869, with the help of the Sultan of Oman, they managed to expel without a fight. They had mostly bought the very poor population with meals. The Saudi Arabian neighbors, who were occupying the oasis of Buraimi, composed of 7 villages, including Al Ain. We will speak again later about Buraimi, because this oasis has been a real issue with the Saudi neighbors.
Troubled times arise with the disappearance of this great leader and the First World War. Rivalries erupt, and power is acquired through struggle and blood, as in most European and other monarchies.
The reign of Sheikh Shakbot bin Sultan Al Nahyan marks a pivotal period in the history of Abu Dhabi, at the crossroads between a traditional world inherited from past centuries and the early signs of modernity. To understand his actions, it is essential to place them in the historical context of the time. The world was then emerging from the upheavals caused by the First and Second World Wars. Everywhere, technological progress, industrialization, and the development of international trade were profoundly transforming societies. Means of transport modernized, electricity became widespread, and the exploitation of energy resources opened new economic prospects. At that time, the Emirates of the Trucial Coast began to gradually open up to the world. Sheikh Shakhbout and his brother, the future Sheikh Zayed, made several trips abroad. These travels allowed them to discover other cultures, other development models, new architectures, and different ways of organizing modern societies. A man deeply attached to his traditions and tribal values that had ensured the survival of his people for generations, Sheikh Shakhbout nevertheless observed these changes with caution. This reserve may seem excessive today, but it was partly explained by his desire to protect his emirate against transformations he sometimes considered too rapid or poorly managed. During the 1950s, the first signs of modernization nevertheless appeared. Motorized vehicles multiplied, the first desalination plants were experimented with, and infrastructure related to oil exploration gradually developed. Electricity made its appearance in certain sectors, while exchanges with foreign countries became more frequent. The discovery of oil fields off the coast of Abu Dhabi, particularly around Das Island, marks a major historical turning point. Exploration campaigns conducted by oil companies, including the oceanographic team led by Commander Jacques-Yves Cousteau, help confirm the importance of the Emirates' offshore resources. However, despite the gradual arrival of oil revenues, infrastructure development remains limited for much of Sheikh Shakhbout's reign. Schools are few and far between, road networks are embryonic, and access to drinking water remains a daily challenge for much of the population. Brackish water is still widely used, while desalination plants are insufficient to meet growing needs. All-terrain vehicles often constitute the only reliable means of getting around in a territory that is still largely desert. Gasoline, however, despite the gradual arrival of oil revenues, infrastructure development remains limited for much of Sheikh Shakhbout's reign. Schools are few and far between, road networks are embryonic, and access to drinking water remains a daily challenge for much of the population. Brackish water is still widely used, while desalination plants are insufficient to meet growing needs. Is distributed in a rudimentary way by local traders, often from simple metal drums. Even the introduction of electricity raises questions. Several testimonies report that Sheikh Shakhbout was particularly cautious about new technologies, preferring to proceed gradually rather than take risks he considered poorly controlled. This attitude reflects his conservative temperament more than any systematic opposition to progress. Similarly, some modern construction or rapid urbanization projects are met with reserve. Sheikh Shakhbout fears that too abrupt changes could undermine the social, cultural, and political balances of his emirate. In 1962, the first oil tanker exporting Abu Dhabi's oil leaves Das Island. This event marks the Emirates' definitive entry into the oil era. Yet, for a large part of the population, the benefits of this new wealth remain barely visible in daily life. Foreign companies, primarily British under existing agreements, then play a central role in the exploitation of oil resources. They rely on qualified foreign labor, while many local residents do not yet fully benefit from the economic opportunities created by this new industry. This situation fuels growing discontent. In 1963, the first major strike by Abu Dhabi workers testifies to the increasing expectations of a population aspiring to benefit more from the revenues generated by oil. Paradoxically, as oil revenues rapidly increase, Sheikh Shakbout remains extremely cautious in their use. Convinced that oil resources might not last forever, he prioritizes savings and the accumulation of financial reserves over massive spending. This policy of budgetary prudence, often criticized at the time, starkly contrasts with the considerable investments that will be made a few years later under the reign of his brother, Sheikh Zayed. Several now famous anecdotes illustrate this almost obsessive desire to preserve the Emirates' wealth. They testify to a leader convinced that his first duty was to protect his people's future by conserving the newly acquired resources. Thus, on the eve of the great transformations that will give birth to modern United Arab Emirates, Abu Dhabi finds itself in a singular situation, a territory that has become potentially very rich thanks to oil, but whose modernization still largely remains to be built. The legacy of Sheikh Shakbout remains a subject of debate today. Some blame him for his excessive caution in the face of change. Others emphasize that he was able to preserve the unity, stability, and resources of his emirate during a particularly uncertain period. Whatever the case, his reign constitutes an essential step in the transition that will lead Abu Dhabi and then the United Arab Emirates to their spectacular development in the second half of the 20th century. In 1835, very present in this region due to their Indian colony and the need for a stopover port, the British decided to gather all the sheikhs present on the peninsula to sign an annual non-aggression agreement renewable every year. The wars between tribes hindered their trade. They played the cohesion by acting as reporters or whisperers to ease relations between the sheikhs in order to consolidate their power. In 1853, this non-aggression agreement became permanent. In 1892, to combat the French presence and other nations that were overshadowing them, the British signed an exclusivity treaty, notably for the ports and before it was known that there was oil in the UAE, with British protectorate that lasted until 1971. It is the clauses of this famous agreement that the Sheikh of Dubai had not read, as we will see later. After the war, with more financial liquidity than the other sheikhs, the Sheikh of Dubai coveted the territory of his neighbor in Abu Dhabi and decided to seize Abu Dhabi by force by sea. Sure of himself, he thought that the British would side with him because he was the first of the sheikhs to open the oil tap for them. Unfortunately for him, he underestimated the British's role as international arbiters who blew the whistle for a foul and gave him a huge red card. Sheikh Shakbout bin Sultan, in a way, showed the replay of the video by relying on the 1892 agreements, which stipulated that no sheikh could attack another state by sea. You don't mess with the rules across the channel. After all, they invented fair play. The Dubai resident was therefore forced to return to sea to leave his big brother from Abu Dhabi in peace, this time supported by the British. What's more, Sheikh Maktoum is indebted to a large financial compensation to the Abu Dhabians. In 1935, the sheikhs agree with the British for the oil exploration of their zone, but it is not yet a question of exploitation. This first agreement allows Sheikh Shakbout bin Sultan to recover a handsome sum of money from the British, and he begins the construction of the extension of the Qasr Al Hosn of Abu Dhabi, 1936 to 1939. In 1937, the sheikhs secede among themselves, and the Sheikh of Dubai opens wide the door, or rather the tap, to the British by granting oil extraction on his territory. In 1938, the sheikhs of Rak, Sharjah, and Kalba follow suit. Sheikh Shakhbut bin Sultan, aware that he must not miss this opportunity, also signs this agreement in 1939. Alas for him, the media were not as present as today and did not warn him about the information on the war in Europe. He sees his actions stopped abruptly with the Second World War and does not derive any profit from oil for 5 years, while Dubai had started its enrichment 3 years before the war. In 1946, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan is designated by his brother as governor and as the sovereign's representative for the Al Ain region. Pragmatic and attentive to others, he modernizes agriculture, and as the sovereign's representative in Al Ain, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan makes the ancient oasis bloom in both the literal and figurative sense. He reforests the area, leads an innovative irrigation program for the lands, abolishes privileges, does not hesitate to share water, the ultimate resource, by reviewing property deeds for the sources, including for his own family, implements an urbanization plan, and redistributes wealth. Al Ain regains its past splendor and becomes an essential point for local market exchanges. The English do not mistake this, which is why they will come to seek him out in 1966. Al Ain will have been, in a way, the laboratory and nursery of what the UAE will become under his reign. This image alone perhaps sums up the deep soul of the United Arab Emirates better than long speeches. These fascinating men were shaped by the desert. In my eyes, no one has better described the Bedouin world than Wilfred Thesiger in his works, Arabian Sands and The Life of My Choice. With remarkable sobriety, far from any artificial romanticism, he recounts the nobility of his traveling companions, their families and their animals, whether camels or falcons that shared their lives. One must have spent time in the desert to understand its grandeur. There, man learns humility. Every day, the landscape transforms. The dunes shift shape under the wind's action. The colors metamorphose with the passing hours. The light dances on the sand. The heat can become overwhelming, while the nights sometimes bring a coolness bordering on cold. The sun burns the eyes. The sand infiltrates everywhere, and nature constantly reminds man of his fragility. And yet, they endured. They tamed this austere land to raise their families. They learned to make do with little, sometimes with almost nothing, while keeping the spirit of sharing. Hospitality remained sacred, even in scarcity, and could extend to former enemies when a truce had been agreed upon. They faced the harshest trials, the dried-up oasis, the thirsty herds, the children who had to be fed despite tomorrow's uncertainty. They drank the brackish water from wells, sometimes perfuming it to lessen its bitterness. They lived on dates and porridge when meat was scarce. They walked for entire days, their feet bruised and bleeding, relieving their mounts while continuing their journey toward a life-saving water source. From this life was born an exceptional culture, a culture based on resilience, courage, solidarity, and absolute respect for one's word. A culture nourished by constant observation, that of men, animals, stars, wind, clouds, and the dangers looming on the horizon. When one understands what the desert demanded of those who crossed it, one also understands what it gave them in return. it instilled in them a deep conviction. No obstacle is insurmountable. In this Bedouin heritage, failure is not an end. It is only a lesson, an additional step on the path to success. Perhaps this is where the secret of modern Emirates lies. Behind the skyscrapers, ports, technologies, and ambitions of the 21st century, the spirit of the desert remains silent, demanding, and untamed. The friendship between Thesiger and Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan is concretized by daily exchanges, long hunting trips for Shaheen falcons to catch bustards and rabbits on camelback in the vastness of the desert. Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan even goes so far as to lend Thesiger his favorite she-camel, nicknamed Ghazala, reputed to be the most beautiful of all the camels in the Trucial States. Thesiger describes a very poor, very harsh, and very hard way of life, but with genuine people who respect their word and know each other inwardly thanks to the solitude of the desert. He sums it up as follows: "The men live there because it is the world in which they were born. The life they lead is the one their ancestors led before them. They accept trials and hardships. They know no other paths. Other paths. Black gold will make them discover them." In the 1930s, 1940s, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan was tasked by his brother to accompany and guide the first teams of geologists who came to survey the land for future oil explorations, particularly in the Mubon region. During this phase, he understood, learned, and analyzed the behavior of the British towards the members of the local tribes. He realized that the Indians were better treated than his cousins, who were used for menial tasks. In 1953,